Caleb, you have a conspiracy theory that if I were a little bit more by the book, I might quell it when we discussed this yesterday. I might just say that, Caleb, you're crazy. That would never happen. But Caleb has a pretty darn good point. And let's start in how it relates to the Tennessee-South Carolina game last year. Did other coaches perhaps help South Carolina prepare for Tennessee? Now, follow along if you guys are on board, because this is good stuff. Let's start with Deion, and we'll set it up. 30 seconds is all we need. But Deion Sanders and Keyshawn Johnson have a theory, because I'll go ahead and tell you that Keyshawn refers to it as a source. A source is Deion Sanders in this regard. Tell me what happened with Colorado and their beatdown they suffered last week against Oregon, and what Keyshawn had to say.
So Keyshawn Johnson, who is now a regular co-host on Undisputed with Skip Bayless, Michael Irvin, and Richard Sherman, said about the Colorado game yesterday that he had a source tell him, and you think the source is Deion, and I would subscribe to that being the likelihood, the mostly likely, that a bunch of other coaches had exchanged Oppo research with Oregon with what they knew about Colorado more than usual. Now, Oppo research is a thing, Dave, in college football, as you know, but you still...
I don't know what Oppo research means, real quick.
Opposition research about the opposition. But I would assume, at the college level, oftentimes coaches try to save that for themselves because they want to be the one to cash in on it against any sort of program, whether that be. But apparently, according to Keyshawn, there was a mass wave of Oppo research given to Oregon about Colorado because there's a lot of people upset about the waves Deion is making in college football.
Okay, so here's how this ties into Tennessee. Tennessee last year, I don't think there's any question about it, ran the score up against Missouri. I think that coaches resented that, and it would not surprise me at all. These coaches know each other, guys. A lot of coaches, unlike the Steve Spurriers who loved Florida because of all they did for him and he played there, and the Philip Fulmers who loved Tennessee, a lot of these coaches know each other, and they're just taking a check and they're wearing the jersey because or the coach's shirt because that's the one that pays them. So these coaches know each other, and everybody remembers Faxgate as well. So would it surprise me at all if other SEC coaches said, hey, that Josh Heupel guy, he's jumped in front of the line. He's having too much success too quickly, talking about 2022. And he is running up the score on Missouri, and he's making us all look bad. Let's help South Carolina a little bit. Would that surprise me? H-E to the double hockey sticks. No, that would not surprise me at all. I'm not going full bore conspiracy theory on you, but if you call up to Missouri, I guarantee you would get a lot of help. Don't forget about this either. Shane Beamer's dad, longtime coach. So Shane Beamer is as tied in as you could be to the coaching community. Do I think that South Carolina perhaps sent out fielders? Again, conspiracy theory, can't back it up. Last year, yeah, I think they probably did. And I think they probably got more help from other SEC teams because Tennessee was playing so well, and people viewed Josh Heupel as jumping to the front of the line, having too much success too early, and perhaps running up the score a la Missouri. That would not surprise me at all, Caleb.
And there's another reason for maybe, I don't know if Shane Beamer had connections, but for those who don't remember, before Shane Beamer got hired at Oklahoma, by the way, I want to just get this out. I don't know if everybody does remember Faxgate. That was in 91. I was 3. There might be some viewers younger than us. So Faxgate was, for those who don't know, it was Steve Spurrier's first ever win at Tennessee. A Tennessee assistant faxed the playbook for Tennessee to one Ron Zook, who was an assistant at Florida at the time. And Florida, it wasn't surprising that they beat Tennessee, but they beat them by a disturbingly large margin given the talent gap in 1991. So that's what people think. So what I would say with Shane Beamer is the interesting thing is, Dave, Shane Beamer spent 3 years at Oklahoma before he got hired at South Carolina. Now, you and I know there is massive animosity between Josh Heupel and Oklahoma. I mean, it's bad, guys. Heupel thinks he was railroaded by Bob Stoops, and he might have been railroaded by Bob Stoops. Let's just be honest. I mean, he thinks he was forced to take the blame for stuff that was not his fault. And I hear that behind the scenes, he has consistently thrown Oklahoma and Bob Stoops under the bus wherever he could. And so, do you think Oklahoma may have given Shane Beamer some stuff? It's possible. Brent Venables.
Oh, I think there's a jumping in front of the line thing that happens with a young coach. I think that Lane Kiffin is a great example of that for a different reason. Lane Kiffin, before the 2009 season, called out Alabama, called out Florida, even called out Pahokie's community as being a dump, and called out everybody he could possibly think of. I think coaches probably were more willing to help out Tennessee's opponents because of Lane Kiffin, too. I don't think this is unusual. And on the conspiracy theory, if extraterrestrials have abducted humans and that's a 10, or 1, that guy runs a red light, that's your conspiracy theory. I don't think this is that unbelievable. I think it's pretty believable. Worst scale and analogy ever. Just forget I said that, Caleb. In other words, I think it's quite believable. Do you think it's somewhat believable, very believable, or unbelievably believable?
I think it's very believable, quite somewhat. I think it's very believable. I think one of the ones that stands out to me, Dave, and you say it's because people figured out his offense, but I want to know what you think. So Spurrier won the SEC title every year from 1993 to 1996. And it was during that period that he was just throwing jabs at everybody he faced, right? He was taking shots at every coach. Well, he won 1 SEC title his last 5 years at Florida. Now, you say it's because people figured out the offense, but don't you think it was partially all the SEC coaches were coming together, exchanging opera research on Florida on a year-to-year basis? And maybe that's what hurt Tennessee, was they didn't have the opera research on Florida like other teams would later in the year?
Yeah, I don't know. And I can tell you that Philip Fulmer, because of the way things went down with Johnny Majors, and I don't have a problem with Philip Fulmer being aggressive and going after that job, but I can tell you that he wasn't popular and as popular as others in the coaching community. But I doubt Steve Spurrier was either, because Steve Spurrier was cocky. I don't think you like getting beat by Steve Spurrier and him talking about it to the media after. I don't think Florida State liked being called Free Shoes University. We know all the ones about Tennessee, which is you can't spell citrus without a UT. Peyton Manning, 3-time Citrus Bowl MVP. We know about all those, but there were more to other schools. There's no question about it. And I think for 2 different reasons, both coaches probably had a little bit of help behind the scenes.
Oh, I'm sure with that. Well, Fulmer just wasn't unpopular in coaching circles. Fulmer with Johnny Majors was unpopular with the media, because I know this. I was young, but I know this now. Thinking from a media perspective, Dave, imagine being in it at that time. Johnny Majors was the best interview in the SEC. You could not get a better interview than Johnny Majors. And could you imagine? Yeah, and could you imagine being a media member going from Majors to Fulmer? And I'm not knocking Fulmer on this, just his style was to not give you anything entertaining. And Majors was going to get, like Spurrier, was going to give it to you exactly how he felt. And I think that really hurt Fulmer's popularity with the national media. And I think that lack of popularity, I'm going to say it played a role in the Peyton Manning Heisman race in 97. I do. I think that's why a lot of people didn't like Tennessee nationally, because they didn't like Fulmer. And it's why Florida State was media darlings, because everybody in the media liked Bobby Bowden. You couldn't not like Bobby Bowden if you were in the media.